Blades fans, subscribe to Blades Ramble. Up the Blades.
What is happening, Blades? And welcome back to the Blades Ramble. I'm, of course, Jimmy, and we're proudly sponsored by Action Coach Sheffield and VMB Auto Centres. Thank you very much to them for their support. Thank you also to our more Ramblers, Platinum Ramblers, that have joined us today and yesterday and the days before. Huge influx into our community. You're all very welcome, and it's very much appreciated. And this is why I feel it's only right to give the guys who support the channel the most, and it's difficult to differentiate because everybody supports in their own way and what they can do. So it's no slight on anybody else, but I want to give you perks and reason to want to support me in that way. So you are getting this live, and it'll go out to the wider audience and subscribers and what have you tomorrow, like I've been doing with the other previous videos. So today we are here, and it won't be a long one because there's a semi-final to get to, which we'll be looking at on the Jimmy Ramble channel very, very soon. So I'm not going to keep you long, but it's quite an interesting one, this one. It's quite an exciting one, because yesterday I talked about logic in my picks. So it wasn't necessarily the most exciting names, the most, explosive names. We had John Swift on there that we've been linked with previously. Matt Grimes was my #1 pick. We had names like Kenny McLean, who don't jump off the page at you really. But now this is a different question, and I'm happy to let my heart rule my head on this one. And there's a little bit of what I think we need in that midfield in there, but we've talked about it previously. Midfield, I think, is our strongest position going into this season. And we can't lose sight of the fact we've still got Vinny Souza, whether we rate him or not. We're expecting to hopefully sell him, but to sell him, you have to have a suitor and somebody that's willing to pay the money that we would accept for him. He may be, and people are speculating in the chat, and it's a valid discussion. He might be a beast in the Championship. Who knows? Who knows? But obviously, the two linchpins for us, Ollie Arblaster, who, yes, we're putting a lot of pressure on his shoulders, but what a player he's going to be for us. Can't help but build him up. And Gus Hamer, absolutely superb. I also think it's a big season for Andre Brooks. We've got Tom Davies to come back in when/if he's fit. There's a real pool of talent in that midfield. So whereas yesterday it was more based on realistic signings in terms of style and what we need, I've based this around ideal signings are just players that make us better as a squad because they're ideal. They lift the levels. And starting us off at number 5 is Ben Sheaf at Coventry. So it won't be a new name to you because recently, I'm going to say frequently, it came out as Freak, but recently he's been linked to Luton. I think that was before they got relegated in a £10 million switch. So it's not like low fees we're talking about here. That's why he's on the ideal signings list rather than realistic. We won't stretch to that, and I certainly don't think Luton will stretch to that in Championship. But 264 career appearances and 131 of those in the Championship. 31 goal involvements. So that's 15 goals and 16 assists. He got 7 goals and 6 assists last season alone. A cultured midfielder. Came through Arsenal's academy. A little bit like, he's not as tough tackling, but it's a little bit of a level up on Matt Grimes that we were talking about yesterday. And obviously younger as well. So I think Ben Sheaf is just a classy operator and certainly would improve our midfield. But that's the last unfamiliar name that you'll hear on this list, because the rest have either been linked or I've tried to link them in times gone by. And I know I'm not on my own when I talk about number 4 being a bit of a cult favourite amongst Blades fans, and that is Hamza Choudhury. Hamza Choudhury, 26-year-old, 217 career appearances for Leicester. Oh, but throughout his career, to be fair, 53 Premier League games. 249 career appearances in total. Defensive midfielder, just what we need in our system. He has spent time on loan at Watford, and I think if my timings are right, I think that was under Wilder. You may be able to correct me in comments if that's not entirely true, but he, and again, in terms of my list, he is the last one to fit the mold of the ideal for what we need in this midfield. So he is very similar. He's like the ideal destroyer type that I would want us to sign. I think he would blend really well with Ollie Arblaster, and it allows Gus Hamer to be further forward. So that gets the best out of our midfield personally. But I think he's a great player, particularly for the level. It's just whether, because he got into the Leicester side last season, it's whether they see him a part of their Premier League squad. And now we're the new manager coming in, Steve Cooper. It's a case of what things, he may see things completely differently. He may see him as a big part of the plans going forward. So that's why it's an ideal rather than a realistic signing for me. Moving on to number 3, my third most wanted ideal signing is Ilias Chair. Ilias Chair, QPR, we all know about him. Now, 26, 217 championship appearances, 34 goals, 34 assists, 68 goal involvements. Very good flair player. Very good flair player. I mean, there is a huge, and I mean a huge, asterisk above Chair. And most of us will know about it. Surprisingly, though, while I'm on QPR, I didn't expect Chris Willett to be going to Cardiff. Anyway, that's by the by. I think he could have done better than that. I think Kyle said that in our chat, and I agree completely. Anyway, back to Chair. I just think he's such a brilliant flair player for the level, and he's proven himself at the level. Everybody knows he's going to be a superb player at this level if he's allowed to play. And I say that because he is currently appealing a prison sentence. So I think he's got a 12-month prison sentence and another 12 months suspended for a serious assault on a lorry driver with a brick or a rock or something, him and his brother. It sounds horrendous, to be honest. And I don't, it's put me off. It'd probably been higher on the list in terms of ideal set. I still don't think it's going to happen, obviously. But you've got to weigh up, you know, the circumstances around signing him potentially. And also the other two, you'll understand, I think, why they're higher on the list than this man himself. So it doesn't quite fit in with the style in terms of what we've already got, because if we bring Chair in, you've got to push Gus a little bit further back, I think. And there's also the huge asterisks around, not necessarily his attitude, but certainly his off the field situation, if you like. So I think it's the first time he's been in any sort of bother, but what bother to get into? So Chair is number 3. Number 2 on the list, heavily talked about, and already a member of Sheffield United folklore. It is, of course, David Brooks. David Brooks, 27 years old, 176 career appearances, 58 of those in the Premier League, 26 goals, 30 assists. That's 56 goal involvements. We know all about him, don't we? We know everything we need to know about him. Superb player. Originally came from Man City, but like made his professional debut through Sheffield United's academy. I wouldn't class him as an official academy product, a little bit like Illiman, really, where we've got him young and developed him, but probably at the later stages of his development. Brooksy came in, that famous nutmeg on Jack Hunt. I'll be careful how I say that. Yeah, it will live long in the memory. He's obviously been through a tremendous struggle, personal struggle in terms of Hodgkin's lymphoma, and thankfully overcoming that, what horrific disease and illness to go through. And you always wonder what they're going to be like after that in terms of the impact it has on them longer term. It doesn't appear to have affected him greatly. Now, we won't know what his potential could have been. It's always one of those speculative what ifs. What could he have become without that illness? Or Well, we don't have to compare it like that, do we? We just think, what kind of player can he still be? Because he's still producing. He went on loan from Bournemouth to Southampton, I think in January last year, did really well, always looked bright when we were playing for them. I am skeptical. That's the word I was looking for. I'm skeptical that Bournemouth would loan to Southampton or even sell to Southampton in the Premier League. I know they're not huge rivals despite the location, but they're going to be potential relegation rivals, aren't they? And I don't think Bournemouth, knowing some of the deals that we tried to do with Bournemouth last season, I know they would rather do business with a Championship club, which isn't going to directly affect them, than another Premier League club. So I think a loan to the Championship, if David Brooks is made available, a loan to the Championship, potentially with the buy option, if promoted maybe, would be the one for us. Obviously, we sold him for a decent sum to Bournemouth. That helped us rebuild our squad when we had very little money. It brought in the likes of John Egan, meant that we could do business around Ollie Norwood. I think it were around that time as well. He was pivotal to us kicking on as a club. So yeah, I think it'd be great for David Brooks to come home. And that leads us to number one, who will be no surprise to anybody, especially after the last few days. It is, of course, Callum O'Hare, 26 years old, 269 career appearances, 41 goals and 45 assists. That's 86 goal involvements. He came through the Villa youth system. Thing is, well, as you can see there, he's free. There's no such thing as a free transfer, by the way. We know this. We've been through this. No such thing as a free transfer. However, it's not linked to any club. It's not affiliated to any club at the moment. The one question mark over Callum O'Hare is his injuries. And I understand it, and I am cautious of it. I'm aware of it. He had a severe cruciate injury that happened at Bramall Lane, I believe, if I've got my dates right. And he's been out for 9 months. I think it was 9 months he were out for. And then he returned in October 23. And yes, he hasn't played full 90s, or he may have done the sporadic one, but he hasn't. I checked his record and he hasn't been out injured since he returned, but that doesn't mean they haven't wrapped him in cotton wool a little bit, been quite careful with him. We know from experience, like Ollie McBurney's been injured and he's still made appearances off the bench and stuff like that for us. So I know that it's not always as it looks, but if we can get an asset like that without paying a transfer fee, he's been heavily linked to Sheffield United. I know people are going to be potentially asking about what's happening with Jimmy, because his name's been out there. We've been talking to him, haven't we? We're doing this, that, and other. First thing I have to say is, and this is always the rule, it always has to be the rule, and it always will be the rule. If me talking about players and potential deals with players is going to damage United's chances of getting him, or he's going to reveal something that damages even a 10% chance of a deal being done, it's not worth me talking about, is it? It's not worth the extra couple of subs or clicks or whatever it's going to be. You won't get clickbait here. And that's certainly my intention. I have been accused of that once before, but I will push back on it. So Danny Hall is the one that's reported we're in talks with Callum O'Hare. I think I saw Darren state that he believed that to be true as well. Darren Smith. I also, because they're saying that, I can say that I believe that could well be the case. And I certainly hope that I strongly hope that it is the case, that we are close on a deal for Callum O'Hare, because what a coup that would be, and what a lift for a club that I think it's widely perceived that we're on our knees to a little bit, to some people, because it's been so negative for the last 18 months. Not 18 months, certainly just over 12 months. Terrible Premier League season. Hit with a -2 before we even kicked off. We'd been in the embargo prior to that. Players leaving, iconic players, George Baldock, John Egan, Ollie Norwood, John Fleck, all these iconic players for Sheffield United just leaving the club. It feels like a little bit of the club's been ripped away from us. But what a shot in the arm this would be, a signing like that. Now, I don't want to get too excited about it because it's not done till it's done. But I can assure you there is stuff going on behind the scenes to make sure we are okay. And you've also got to think, we're assuming that Sousa's going, like we've talked about. We're assuming that Anel's going, but they're still here. They're still here at the moment. So if we kicked off the championship season tomorrow, what do we need? We need a goalkeeper, in my opinion. We certainly need a goalkeeper. I think we need a striker. And other than that, I think we can fill other positions quite comfortably at the moment. Maybe a right back to back up Bogle if we don't think Curtis is quite ready. So anyway, let me know what you think about those picks, because I'm quite pleased with those. And I know that it's not necessarily ideal in terms of where they fit in, because they're luxury players, and that's the whole point in this type of list. It's if I could have anybody I wanted that's realistic to a degree, but they're ideal signings, really. So yeah, those are the names I wanted. So I'm going to jump into your comments, and then we're going to wrap it up because I'm going to jump on Jimmy Ramble at 7:45, just before kickoff. And David starts us off. Choudhury is class. Chair has flair, but his attitude at times is wrong, and he will be missing for a bit. Yeah, potentially. O'Hare is the one, and Brooks, yes. Nice. I like that, David. Thank you, pal. Can't believe Brooksy is 27. I know, mate. Me neither. Oh, it wasn't David that started us off. I've started halfway down the list. Apologies, guys and gals. Oh, would love it if Brooksy came home, said Tim, and you make it sound feasible. I tried to, Tim. Maybe I'm just trying to convince myself there. It was actually Scott that started us off tonight. Evening, Jimmy. Liking what I see. Choudhury O'Hare, yes, please. Heard O'Hare deal is progressing well. Anything you've heard? I've let you in on a little bit there, mate. Would love Brooksy to come back home too. Up the blades. Like and subscribe. I think you mean up the Ramble, but thank you, pal. Maybe Leicester would swap Sousa for Choudhury. Would you do that deal? Knowing that we're probably looking for what we paid for Sousa, which were what, 10 to 12 million quid? Choudhury's not worth that, is he? But would you do it knowing what we got out of Sousa? Interesting shout. Steve Holmes, good evening, pal. Choudhury would be an awesome signing, but with the signing of O'Hare, do we really need him? That's if we sign O'Hare. Yeah, that's true. That's true, Steve. But I think they're different players, aren't they? And Choudhury's more what we need, and O'Hare's more what we want, probably. The only way I see it potentially working, and I suppose you look at, it's not a good example, but I'd like Hamer to play further forward. If we can play O'Hare just off a striker, then we can have two behind him, can't we? We could have Arblaster and Choudhury. Oh, don't, you're making me mouth water. Unbelievable. Sonny, good evening, pal. New Platinum Rambler. Thank you, buddy. Sousa needs to go before bringing in someone similar to his style of play. Choudhury would be class, or Ben Sheaf / Matt Grimes. Yeah, man on my wavelength. I love that, pal. And then Ian says, evening, Jimmy. Feel like we need cover for Blaster. He's a young lad who probably will have a couple of not so good periods of the season. Got to give him space when needed. Up the blades, up the Ramble. Like and subscribe. It's a really sensible point, to be fair. As amazing as Ollie Arblaster's been, we can't forget he's only a young kid. And I don't mean that in a derogatory sense, because he's been the captain of our club already. But the one thing that you get with younger players is inconsistency. And he might need a break from time to time. And it'll be a tough call for Wilder, because we'll go to some games this season and Ollie Arblaster will be on the bench and we'll be saying, what? Well, I certainly won't be. I never question the Messiah. But some of us will be saying, Wilder, what are you playing at? What are you playing at? He's probably our best player. Oh, we certainly want to manifest that, don't we, into him being our best player. But it's the long game, isn't it, like Ian talks about. So, yeah, that's to where we got up to. Thank you, David. Lee says, Sheaf, tick, Hamza, tick, Chair, cross. I thought you might, mate. I didn't understand it. Brooks, tick with a yes, please. O'Hare, tick. Good selection, Jimmy, but new owners are going to need deep pockets if you're a lead scout. This is the ideal selection for a reason, pal. It's the ideal signings, but yeah, you're right. What's said in a ramble stays in the ramble. Justin, Jimmy, Justin Wilder. Thank you, Sully. Thank you, pal. Chair, I think, is a bit similar to Gus. I'd want more height in the middle and get Gus up that pitch. Chair is a good player, though. Trust in the Ramble. Trust in them blades up the Ramble. Thank you, pal. I agree in terms of the height, and I think that is a factor that we have to consider. It's why he's number 3, because I do think he's a very talented player. And if he becomes available at a knockdown price and we sign him, I'm certainly not going to be crying about it. But there is a bit of baggage now that comes with him in there, and that dark cloud of whether he's going to be suspended for a majority of the season because he's inside. It's one of them, isn't it? One of them. Bayern Munich agree a deal to sign João Palhinha, so maybe Marco Silva comes back in for Vinny. Supposedly a fan of his, says Lee. I don't know whether I've not seen an official link to Fulham, but I do know that me and Billy often talked about when João Palhinha goes, they will likely want to come for Vinny Souza. Now, if they look at his stats in the Prem, like we've talked about previously, they're okay. They're all right stats. If he's seen him play, that's when we might struggle. I'd drive Souza down myself for that deal, says Scott. Choudhury's a destroyer, O'Hare is a creator. Exactly right. That's exactly the way it is, isn't it? And we need a destroyer more than anything else. But I'd like both. Don't be greedy, Andrew. Come on. So would I. I'd like all 5 if that's all right. Don't think Davis will be around first team. Also, Souza stays, okay, but I doubt it. Midfield will be sorted up the blades, up the Ramble. I think Davis will be around. It's just whether he's available. I think he's certainly good enough to be involved in the first team picture. But I don't know if he's going to be available to play. That's the only thing. It's the injury that's the big question mark over Tom Davis, isn't it? So I'm going to leave it there. Thank you, everybody, for joining me tonight. We have got a big game to watch, and I'm going to be watching it over on the Jimmy Ramble channel. So for anybody that wants to join me over there, I'll be on from 7:45, watching the game with a watch-along. It'd be great to see you there, but I understand if you're watching it on your own, having a few bevs, come watch it with me because I'm having a nice pint of water. So thank you, everybody, for joining me. And as this is a Sheff United video, we finish it with, come on, you red and white wizards. Up the blade!